Good morning, and I need to probably get a little camel to sit on the bookcase shelf behind me, because then he can sit there, and on Wednesdays he can say, "What day is it? What day is it?" It's hump day. It's Wednesday. It's the third day of the week. It's the middle of most people's work week, where they feel like if I get through Wednesday, I can make it to Thursday and Friday, and then it'll be back to the weekend again. I think when I was in high school, I remember hearing a song, "Everybody's working for the weekend." So they're looking for some time off. Anyway, here we go. We're in the book of Hebrews, and we are in the 7th chapter. Last night we had our True Seekers time together, and it's an opportunity to kind of preach through the entire chapter, tie it together into Zechariah and the Gospels, and make some other connections for you. I would encourage you to go to our YouTube channel, Vision Church Assembly of God, right here in Lake Worth, Texas, or you can look in the other parts of this Facebook video area, and we have not only daily devotions, but we have our Sunday services, and our Tuesday True Seekers are also available. There's even a catalog of our senior service with Pastor Steve Henton and guests. And so anyway, that's a resource I wanted to let you know if you're maybe coming and visiting for the first time, or you would like to catch an hour of taking the whole book of Hebrews and expositing it a little bit, preaching through it, making application. That's there for you. Here we are on Wednesday, third day of the week, and we are in Hebrews chapter 7, verses 9 through 12. So let's get right into our meditations in Hebrews, and we'll read here now in the verses 9 through 12, 9, 10, 11, 12. This will kind of span between two sections, but there's 28 verses, and we need to do 4 a day. I didn't want to do 2 one day and then 6 another. A lot of content. So the inspired writer of Hebrews, in speaking to a group of Hebrew believers, at the first, that's basically all they had, was Hebrews that were believers in Jesus as the Messiah. That's the way it was. And then Gentiles. So there was kind of basically 3 divisions in the world. Non-Jews, and then amongst the Jews, this division came. Those who believe in Jesus as the Messiah, and those who do not believe that Jesus is the Messiah. It's just really very simple. The church was, of course, comprised of those who believe Jesus is the Messiah at the beginning, all 100% Jewish. Very quickly, the church was populated with Samaritans, then people from the uttermost parts of the earth, Ethiopians and people from Crete, the islands of the sea, other places in the Roman Empire. Now it's to the Hebrew believers, the ones who have a background, they have been trained in the Torah, they know the first 5 books of the Bible. They've heard them taught, preached, exposited every day, every time in the synagogue. And so the writer of Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, says one might even say that Levi, who collects the 10th, paid the 10th through Abraham. So within the Jewish society, those that were in the priesthood had to come from the tribe of Levi, and they were supported by the first fruits offerings, by the 10%, by the tithe. So everyone in Israel paid their tithes, and their tithes, that 10% of their income, went to support the tribe of Levi. They were supported, and here's what they did. They took care of spiritual life. This was their job, to care for people, to offer gifts, to receive gifts, and to mediate in all forms of worship. So these Levites were paid the 10th. Now, when did they pay the 10th? Since they were supported by the 10th, they themselves didn't pay the 10th. So when did they pay the 10th? And so since the writer of Hebrews is talking about matters of the law, he says you can say that they paid the 10th when Abraham paid the 10th, because they are the descendants of Abraham, and they carry forth this priestly function that we see Abraham functioning in, and we see Melchizedek functioning in. And so they're birds of a feather, so to speak. And so when Abraham paid tithes, effectively Levi did. So it's imputed to them because of the fact that they arose from Abraham. They're Abraham's seed, considered part of Abraham. When Melchizedek met Abraham, Levi was still in the body of his ancestor. Abraham built altars and called upon the name of the Lord. Abraham was involved in some form of priesthood function in his worship and before his family. Then Levi takes on that function in Israel, and so there is an idea of an imputation. There's an idea that Levi, because he did that, gets credit for the tithe, then he receives tithe. And so he's making an argument from law. He's making a legal argument, and says you might even say this. So it's not going to be a real sticking point, but he makes the point nonetheless. Then he goes on to say, if perfection could have been attained through the Levitical priesthood, wow, this is quite a statement. If perfection could have been attained through the Levitical priesthood, and indeed the law given to the people, what's he speaking of? The Torah. He's speaking of the law that was delivered by the hand of angels to Moses. The law given to the people established that priesthood. Why was there still need for another priest to come? So he's making a bold statement here. He is saying that the priesthood, the Aaronic priesthood, the Levitical priesthood, has come to an end. It has ended. Now, in a very real way, in 70 AD, when the temple was destroyed and the Jewish people were dispersed, there was no longer Levitical functioning in Jerusalem. There was no longer sacrifice. It was brought to an end. So it was prophesied by Jesus it would come to an end. So this law was given to the people to establish the priesthood. You read it in Exodus, read Leviticus. It was established. However, he says, if you could have attained, if perfection could have been attained, the writer of Hebrews is basically making this assertion: you cannot attain perfection through the Levitical priesthood. It was defective. It was deficient. What was its chief problem? It was staffed by people who were fallible. They failed and they died. They were mortal, fallible mortals. In the tribe of Levi, all of them were fallible mortals. We should learn that lesson when we see Aaron. Aaron was not the cream of the crop. Aaron was the ringleader in making mistakes and messing up. It should be abundantly clear when he and Miriam oppose Moses, and when he pulls the old, I threw gold into the fire and out came this golden calf routine. Wow. Aaron was not appointed to the priesthood because he was the very best that Israel could offer. He was a Levite. He was in the right family. And he was a placeholder. He was a stand-in. He was an understudy. He was that person that when you're making a movie, you need somebody to stand in for Mr. Clooney, who from behind looks like Mr. Clooney. And so you get a stand-in to stand there while the actress that's being focused upon does her lines and interacts with the stand-in. Because an actor says, if I'm not doing my lines, if I don't have something to say, if my face isn't in the shot, I'm not going to be in the shot. Let's just get a stand-in. And so we get this picture that Aaron, it's like, hey, you, come here. You stand here and face that direction. We're going to take a shot over your shoulder. And here's what we really want to see. So it wasn't about Aaron. It was about the coming one. It was about a dress rehearsal. It was about going through the motions so they could see it all playing out real and make some connections. But it was ultimately not sufficient. He says there's still need for another priest to come, one in the order of Melchizedek, not in the order of Aaron. He says it as a question. Why was there still need for another priest to come? Now, there would be many Jews who would say, what do you mean there's a need for another priest to come? They didn't catch the lesson that everything was pointing ultimately to Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. There's another priest to come, and he's in the order of Melchizedek, not in the order of Aaron. And then he makes this final assertion. For when the priesthood is changed, the law must be changed also. Now, let's focus upon this as we wrap this up today. Change. We're not talking about keep the change. I gave you $1, I'm supposed to get 13 cents back. Keep the change. I'm not talking about rounding up or down our bank balances in the idea of keep the change. We're talking about that painful, horrible, nasty thing that human beings generally don't like to do, and that is change. We have our local Walmart, and they have changed. They've changed locations of stuff on the shelf. They have swapped things around all over the place. They've reoriented by 90 degrees the shelving. It's gone from running this way in the store in some areas to this way in the store in some areas. They have gone through and they've replaced probably 10 or 12 check stands, some would argue they didn't use anyway, and converted them over to a huge self-serve area. And now all of the cashiers that used to be running the cash registers are walking around the store with big carts and loading them up with groceries for people who are texting in their order and then picking it up. Or they're having it delivered. Now you have fewer cashiers, or those few cashiers that were actually on duty are now on duty in a different way. They mill around and make sure and watch people and help them and make sure that they're able to check their own groceries out. And so the same people probably are working. They've changed their function. There's been a lot of change, and there's a lot of dissatisfaction. What always happens when there's a change, even when you ask for, well, I wanted it changed, but not like that. And so there's a lot of grumbling and mumbling. This is big. This is big for the Hebrew people. He's asserting something that's got him immediately in deep water with any person who is not of the way, and probably half of those who are of the way. When the priesthood is changed, the law must be changed also. This is radical. Jesus has come not to leave us like we are, but to transform and change us. And it's going to take more than the Torah and the Aaronic priesthood. That's what he's all about, and that's why he's come. So think about this today. What are some of the changes in my life that the Lord has made, is making, and would like to make? And I don't like change. I find myself mumbling and grumbling about it. You find yourself in the boat with the Hebrews, but you also find yourself in a great place of transformation. Maybe we can ask the Lord to change our perspective on that. That's a good change every one of us can handle. The Lord bless you. Have a great day. His grace and peace be upon you. We'll see you tomorrow.